And really interesting to see that Xi Jinping still backs Carrie Lam.
Yeah, it is interesting, Sherry. This is after more than 6 months of unrest in the city. Carrie Lam has historically low approval ratings in Hong Kong. And the city, as we've talked about a great deal, last month had a record turnout. 71% of the populace, of the citizens who could vote, voted for largely, overwhelmingly for pro-democracy candidates. It was a local election. It wasn't legislative. It was local. But at the same time, it really did show that the populace is still behind this movement. And yet Carrie Lam has not really responded in a meaningful way, yet continues to have the full support of Beijing. So this is coming as we continue to see protests. Last weekend, or the weekend before last, we saw hundreds of thousands of people take to the streets as well. So it seems there's a large divide here. Beijing supporting Carrie Lam. Much of the populace of Hong Kong sees her as part of the problem.
Jodi, the money doesn't particularly seem to be supporting Carrie Lam. We've got the Bank of England saying that about $5 billion has left Hong Kong during all of this turmoil. What more do we know?
Yeah, so we are seeing that, Paul. That had been a thought early on that there would be some capital outflows out of Hong Kong. We hadn't really seen it much over the summer, but now we're starting to see that. Obviously, the economy here is not doing well. It's been in a recession starting in the third quarter. We continue to see economic pressure here. Retailers, hotels are really feeling it. We are seeing a large drop in tourism, particularly from mainland China, where that had really been a mainstay of the economy here. So obviously, and with that, now we're starting to see some of these capital outflows. The property sector is still doing well here, and there's still, the exchange is still a place where people want to list. We're still seeing listings, but at the same time, the economy is under great pressure. There's thoughts that perhaps going into next year, there may be some relief of that pressure, but in the first quarter, we are expecting to see year-on-year declines, particularly in things like retail, and we're not expecting the real economic woes to lift. Now, if the unrest was to, things were to calm down some, perhaps then we would see some of that come back. And that's the message that Carrie Lam and the central government in Beijing are giving, that we want to see things return, we want to see the economy return, but the unrest has to stop first. And that does not look like that will happen anytime soon.
And authorities seem to be pretty adamant in making it clear to the world that Hong Kong is doing well as a financial hub. We have seen them take advertising in the overseas markets as well.
Yeah, these ads have come out saying Hong Kong is on. Hong Kong is, the message is Hong Kong is back, everything's fine. That's an interesting message to tout. The economy is in a recession, so, there's sort of two different messages there. But clearly, they want to market Hong Kong as an international center to try to get back some of that tourism, to try to get back some of those conferences that have canceled. Whether an advertising campaign is going to be able to do that, especially if we continue to see large protests, that's a real question. But clearly, they want to try to promote that image. And interesting that those ads came out this week as Carrie Lam was meeting with officials in Beijing and getting their full support. It's clearly a message they're trying to send to the world.